So we're here today with Martin. So hello, Martin.
Hiya.
Thank you so much for coming in to talk to us today.
That's all right, thanks for having us.
No problem. So first of all, tell us a little bit about what it is that you do.
Well, I've just recently opened a recording studio. So I tend to call myself a music producer, I suppose, but I do sort of engineering, editing, session musician playing, anything I can do really. So I've just sort of tried to get as many skills as possible and then
Definitely, so you
them.
turn your hand to a lot of things, is that right?
Yeah.
And so how long have you been doing all of this then?
Sort of the recording side of things, it's probably been, it must be getting close to 15 years.
Oh wow.
So I started out when I was sort of early 20s. I recorded with help my first band's album, and then it just sort of stuck. I've been sort of in and out of it over that time, working on different projects and things, and then over the last 5 or so years I thought I should probably take this seriously. So I sort of started what I do now as a more casual thing, and then in the last year it sort of needed to become my main line of work.
Definitely. So has it been the past year then, or like obviously the COVID year, that your career's kind of expanded in that sense?
Yeah, definitely. I was working sort of for a different building in the studio prior to all this going on. And I did that for, it must have been about 5 years I was working in that studio. And then there were sort of signs that things were going to change even before everything kicked in. But then obviously COVID sort of made that worse. And they actually looked after us all really well throughout that whole thing. So I was on furlough for 7 months or whatever it was.
That's good.
But it was sort of, on that first day of furlough, it became obvious that I needed to do something to make sure I had a job at the end of it. So I started doing bits and pieces from home. Because people were recording at home themselves and just sort of sending me songs to mix for them or master for them or whatever. So we worked on a couple of albums, which was nice. Just people who'd done it in the house or done it wherever they could. And then obviously it sort of became really obvious that I was going to need somewhere to work. I couldn't keep doing it at home because obviously you can't have a recording studio in your house, in South Shields at least, unless you live in one of the big ones. So I started to look around for places, and some of my friends who I used to work with found spaces at a place called Prospect House. So they've got like photography studios and video studios and a vocal coaching place and things like that. So I was like, well, this seems like a good place to go. So I managed to get in there and start moving in, and eventually managed to open in December, which was nice.
Yeah, that's really exciting, definitely. So I can imagine it was a really exciting time for you. Yeah,
it was really, it was exciting and terrifying at the same time. That's probably the best way to describe it.
I can imagine.
So it was a massive, I've had to borrow lots of money obviously to try and get things in place. We ran a crowdfunder campaign and managed to raise just over £5,000 to go towards the soundproofing, which cost a lot more than I thought it would. So that was useful to have that. And I managed to get a grant from the Chloe and Liam Forever Together Trust. Together Forever Trust, sorry. So they put some money towards the soundproofing as well, which really eased the strain. So there was that sort of, it was amazing really, everyone sort of coming together to really help this.
I can imagine, like almost like a real community.
Yeah, well that's the good thing about sort of the music, well not just the music industry around here, but I can only really talk about that because that's my experience, but definitely the music industry around here is just really supportive and strong. And I think everybody wants each other to succeed. Definitely. Which isn't always the case in every industry. Yeah, absolutely. And actually that's something that I want to touch on. So you are based up here in the northeast, South Shields specifically. Have you ever been tempted to move down to London or move to a bigger city where, you know, some people say, okay, that's where it's all going on, the big smoke. What's kind of kept you down here? Is it that sense of that support and that community? Funnily enough, I was just speaking to Gordon on the phone before this interview started. And he said, okay, so you're interviewing Martin. He's a really respected guy in this area, in this industry. He's very well respected. Everyone knows who he is. Is it that's kind of kept you here? I think it probably is. I think I think I would have struggled to do what I do, whatever that might be, in other places, because I do, you know, everybody needs that little bit of support from other people, and mine's always been from sort of specific sort of people throughout the years, and sort of have been, every job I've had has been here, and it's always felt like the right place to be. There's been times, as I'm sure there is for most, sort of when I was younger, and I thought, I just want to go somewhere else, anywhere else will do. And then you think, actually, what would I actually do there? I don't know anyone.
That's it. It's really, it can be very intimidating. And I suppose it all comes down to networking, doesn't it? It's, a lot of it is down to kind of who you know and your contacts and things like that. But I think the Northeast is fantastic for that. And when you're in that bubble, it's a really supportive one, and it's quite comfortable, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, I never realised how important networking was until I realised that I'd actually been doing it for years, until you find out that it's just talking to people and communicating.
Exactly, and so many people maybe hear the word networking or say you need to go to this networking event, and it fills them with dread, and they think, well, what? I can't hold my own in a room full of professionals, whatever. But actually, it's just a conversation, isn't it? Like you said.
Exactly, I've done more networking events over Zoom in the last year, like specifically networking events, than I ever had before, because I realised I just need to talk to people about what I'm doing and see what they're doing, and see if there's ways we can join up and work together, or just help each other out, or even just make a new friend or whatever, you know.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really nice way to look at it, actually. Like going to you making a new friend, and you know, fingers crossed you get something good from it, out work-wise as well.
It's definitely helped me. Even just going to other people's gigs and things is really useful. I was having a conversation on Twitter about it yesterday. Like it's people sort of wonder why they've put music out and no one's listened to it, or they've put a gig on and no one's come, and it's because they're not talking about it, or they haven't talked enough about it.
Definitely. How important is social media in your line of work?
In my line of work, I think word of mouth's the key for mine to a certain extent, but social media sort of lets me show people who I am before they come and work with us, because I think sometimes it's quite scary in a way to go into a recording studio, because you don't know what to expect. You might have seen photos, but you don't necessarily you don't know who you're going to work with, you don't know what they're like. You might be a bit nervous about singing or whatever in front of them.
Of course.
And I think, so hopefully social media is letting me put some of those fears to one side, because I like to think it's quite a casual space, quite a friendly place. And that's really important to me. That's part of the reason I wanted to do it, was to make sure there's a studio where people can come and just be themselves, whoever that might be.
I love that. I really, really do. And actually, something that I want to ask you, because when you say that you have this recording studio, and it sounds so exciting, it sounds a little bit scary. Someone like me, I'm not a singer at all. And if someone said, okay, you've booked a job, you're going into this recording studio, I'd be filled with nerves, and I'd have complete imposter syndrome. So as someone, you know, coming in from the outside into your recording studio, that's how I would potentially feel at first. Do you ever get that sense of imposter syndrome?
Fairly regularly.
Do you? And how do you tackle it?
I think the key to that sort of thing is realising that, to a certain extent, nobody really knows what they're doing. Everybody's blagging it a little bit. They might have some of the sort of key knowledge and things, but everybody's sort of made a certain leap at some point, to that point where they've gone, right, do I know how to do this? I'm going to try anyway. So it's sort of making that leap and having a little bit of faith in yourself and your own sort of ability to learn more than anything else, I guess.
And just being open to it. And I always try to say, you know, you've got to take the good with the bad, and any sort of constructive criticism, you learn from it, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. It's sort of about saying yes, I suppose. I think that's, if you say yes and then hopefully work out how to do it afterwards, with a lot of jobs, and certainly the way I've got to wherever I am now, is sort of just going, yeah, I can do that, and then doing it later.
I was actually talking to somebody about this the other day, and we were saying that when you are self-employed, especially within the creative industry, you can, you know, have expertise in one area, but then as soon as someone might say to you, okay, can you do this? And you think, yeah, I can do that, of course. Then you go away from it and you think, I need to learn how to do this. Like I've said, I can do it now. But you need to be so adaptable, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, the more adaptable you can make yourself, then the more likely people are going to come and work with you in whatever capacity it might be. So when I first started getting involved with music properly, I had been learning piano since I was like 7 or something like that. I didn't really like it, so I started playing the drums, and then I started to realise, because I was in the school brass band because I was cool, and they would get me to play like the glockenspiel and stuff instead of the drums because I could read music. So you start to realise that these little skills and things that other people might not be as strong at, and then you get these little extra jobs, and then so I started to play the guitar, and then people start asking you to play guitar for them, or you start writing songs, and then people ask you to write songs with them, and then you start a band, and then you get into more bands. And it just all starts to spread out the more sort of skills you can give yourself.
Yeah, definitely. That's so interesting, and I completely agree with that. I think every little thing that you can learn along the way, in the grand scheme of things, is going to help you, isn't it? Yeah, so have you always been creative then? Have you always been musical? Or is that again something that you just had an interest in and that you pushed as you got older? Or is it in your blood, shall we say?
It's a strange one. I think because I started learning early, then it's always been a part of my life. I think apparently my brother started getting piano lessons because my cousin was, and then I was like, well, I'm not getting left out. I want them as well. I don't remember this, I must have been too young. But I think the earlier you start, the more it sort of is in you, because it just becomes part of what you do. But I think, I don't like to think that sort of people are born with it or born without it, because I think that sort of puts people off. Like so many people, so I've done bits of guitar teaching and stuff in the past, and people are just like, well, I can't do this. And you're like, well, the key is just having a go and sticking with it, because nobody picks it up straight away and goes, you know, is the best in the world at whatever. It's just sticking and focusing. But, I mean, the earlier you do it, the easier it is, because children learn faster.
They soak it all up, don't they? Yeah, it's so easy for them. Well, I think my son, like, he literally can try anything and picks it up really quickly, but children can't they?
Yeah, it's just the way their brains work. And as you get older, sort of, it's harder to learn new things, but it doesn't mean you can't.
Exactly.
So I was teaching I think a lady who was in her 70s. I was teaching her the guitar. She'd never played before. She was convinced she couldn't do it, but her husband played bass. So she wanted to have a go so they'd be able to play together. And it took a while, but after, maybe it was a year, she was in a position where she was writing her own songs and playing. And I think she was nearly ready to go and start doing buskers nights and things like that.
That's amazing.
Until everything hit and sort of put a hold on it. But I imagine she's been practicing a lot.
I think that's probably been the positives, hasn't it, from lockdown and COVID, is that everyone's had time to practice a little bit more and go into the interests that actually maybe they wouldn't have had time to do.
Yeah, hopefully. Someone else I know that I've been working on an album with, I've worked with him pretty much my whole life. He's like one of my oldest friends, and in the first lockdown I basically got a WhatsApp message off him saying I'm going to start writing songs on my own. It doesn't play any instruments or anything, so we spent time just sort of sending each other messages about music theory and exciting things like that, and he managed to write 10 songs, and he's got an album coming out this year.
Do you know what? That's amazing. It's so nice to hear positive outcomes from the past year, because it's so easy to kind of get stuck in your own head and think, well, things haven't been great for me, so everyone must be going through a really tough time. And, I mean, everyone has been going through a tough time. However, there are stories like that one that are inspiring.
It's amazing some of the things that have happened. There's another songwriter I know who's only 16 and he's written about 80 songs in the last year, and it's just, how do you do that? I've written one song in about 2 years.
You get writer's block and then you just stop. But no, that's absolutely amazing. So as things start to ease and hopefully go back to normal, or some sort of new normal anyway.
Yeah.
Where can we see you over the next year with your recording studio? What's in the pipeline?
Well, hopefully, I mean, I've been quite lucky in that I've been able to work over the last few months since I opened. But hopefully things just keep picking up, because I want to make as much music as possible with as many different people as possible, because that's been my dream for a long time now, just to work with lots of different people, because you learn so much from them. So hopefully over the next few years you'll sort of see my name attached to a lot of different projects, whatever they might be. I'm in a band as well called District Attorney, so hopefully we'll be able to actually play some gigs again.
I bet you can't wait to just that sense of everyone being together, the excitement from a gig, like.
Yeah, to tell the truth, I didn't really miss it that much before. So we could go months without a gig and I felt all right about it, but oh no, I'm ready now.
Yeah, you almost take it for granted knowing that it's there whenever you want it.
You can just pick it up and put it down, but then when it's been sort of put away, it's a very different thing. But so we've started work on a second album. Wow. So hopefully that's in the future as well. And I just want to keep putting out good quality music for lots of different people. Yeah,
definitely. And it sounds like you will. I mean, you definitely seem like focused and, you know, that you really enjoy your work and your job as well, which is something that not everyone can say.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you've already got that on your side.
Well, I'm very lucky in that I have sort of, it's not all down to me. I've been very lucky to have the right support from the right people for a very long time. And it has all just come together strangely well. I'm very lucky to be where I am, so hopefully it continues, and it has gone well so far. So I haven't had a bad day at work yet, which is nice.
I mean, that is amazing. I don't think anyone can say that, really.
Yeah, I've been running since the start of December, like sort of in the studio. Sort of, I'm not full time yet. I'm still part time. But I haven't had a bad day yet, so I'm not going to complain. Oh,
fantastic. Well, you did just mention that you said that you've been very lucky, and I think that might be part of it. However, I do think that it comes down to you working hard for what you enjoy and what you want to do. So, you know, full credit to you for that.
Yeah, there's definitely an element of that.
Yeah, especially in a pandemic. So well done.
Thank you.
I do just have one more question to ask you, and it's something that I like to ask all of the people that we interview, because the answers are all different and really, really interesting. So, if you could go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice, something that you wish maybe somebody had told you, what would it be?
That's a good one. That's a tricky one. I'd probably say just to keep trying as hard as you can, because there's always times where you think, I'm done, I'm just going to do something different. There's been plenty of times when I've thought I'll just go and get a real job, whatever that is. I struggle with that term because it's not a real thing, but there is always that temptation of just going and doing something different. But I think the key is just to keep trying and keep sticking with it, because it probably is going to work out, hopefully.
Yeah. No, definitely. It's good advice. Absolutely. Brilliant.
Yeah, I think the harder you work at something, even on the days when it feels like it's worthless and it's pointless, there's more good days than bad days if you keep working hard and keep trying. That's my theory, and I'm sticking with it.
No, absolutely. I read a quote the other day, actually, and I'm probably going to say it wrong now, but it was something like, when you're feeling down, remember the days where you wanted what you have now. And I think that's such a good thing to remember, because sometimes it's easy to get so muddled up in your own head, in your own life, and forget all of the things that you've actually achieved. Like, you've been through the bad days before, but yet you've come out of them, and look what you've got now. And
that's something I try and remember. It's obviously hard sometimes when you're having a stressful day or whatever, but hopefully it's a good bit of advice for people, I think, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, well, thank you so much for taking the time off your busy schedule to talk to us today.
Thanks for having us. I like it.
Yeah, it's a good venue, isn't it? Yeah, well,
I'll definitely be coming here more often when the world opens up again.
Yes, definitely. And no doubt we're going to see a lot more of you in the coming year. Thank you.
Thank you.